So one of the things I wanted to talk about this section, and it's particularly an area that a lot of people tend to get very kind of nervous, concerned about if they're caring for someone with a mental health problem, is what about possible risks, and obviously in the worst case, sort of suicide. So
it is an understandable concern. It's something which is all too prevalent, although only a very, very small minority of people suffering from depression or anxiety do take their own lives. It is clearly something which everyone wants to be alert to and do whatever they can to protect and to help the individual. Some of the key principles are that you should never be afraid to use the word suicide. All the research shows unequivocally that it's not a good idea to avoid this subject because you're afraid you might put the idea into their head. If they've thought about it at all, they will be ready to talk about it. If they haven't thought about it, you mention it won't make them do it or make it more likely they'll think about it. You should always be confident in asking direct questions if you have concerns.
And I think that's a really, really important point, because it is an understandable concern, particularly people who've not had any training or therapy. And I remember an exercise during my training where one of the tutors, when we were talking about this, said, okay, we're going to talk about suicide. He said, I've just said the word. He said, how many of you weren't feeling suicidal and now feeling suicidal now? And often when you sort of think about that, it may seem somewhat absurd, but
sure.
Hearing the word suicide or someone asking you if you're suicidal will not make someone that isn't having suicidal thoughts suddenly have them. So, try and take that fear away, and there's a huge amount of research behind that.
Absolutely. And the other element is that, although it might seem obvious, you should feel very comfortable and confident saying, if you are at any point ever thinking, I do not want you to do it. And people say, God, but they would know that already. Well, yes, probably, but you saying it gives them a new memory. And you should feel confident in saying that if there's any doubt at all. That's important. There's a lot of myths about suicide as well, but it is true that men are more likely to take their own lives than women. It is true that there are some signs, there's no single unequivocal sign, but there are some things to look out for. But the other overarching principle is, if you believe that your partner is actively thinking about taking their own life, you should contact emergency services and or the GP immediately. You should never think, well, it might be a false alarm, or it might not be something that can be dealt with straight away. Nonetheless, you should, if it really comes to it, phone 999 if the person is actively on the brink of taking their own lives. If there's any issue at all about the person needing help, there are various helplines, including the Samaritans or the NHS helpline. If the person seems to be talking about hopelessness and other signs more frequently, then at the very least you should get to go to the GP and have a conversation about that. If your partner is in counselling or therapy, they should and they probably will have what's called a safety plan or a care plan, which is linked to helping the client identify what are the things which might make them feel more suicidal, what activities might they do or who might they contact if that does come about, if they feel a little bit as if things are really bad and I wonder, what do I do next? And then not telephone numbers of people they can speak to straight away. Maybe in the family, you would be on that list if you're a carer, or someone they trust, maybe a religious leader or someone they respect professionally who knows about the situation. And as a carer, you want to encourage the individual to make use of those numbers whenever they need to, and of course if the feelings sustain, to be able to call NHS 111 or indeed to call GP surgery and say it's an emergency, say that you are thinking about taking your own life or you've had those feelings, and of course if it really comes to dial 999. So we should never underestimate the importance of these things. In terms of the signs, there are some things to look out for, and many people have maybe one or two of these signs. If you see one of these signs, it doesn't mean your partner's about to take their own life, but you want to take a rounded view. There are examples of the person talking about hopelessness, saying they're losing hope and they're just the situation is bad. They might always have felt that way, but maybe in the past they felt as though, I think things will change, but I'm not sure how. If they start to lose the hope, that's a sign that maybe they're moving towards doing something that involves self-harm. Another element that maybe isn't intuitive is rage. Very often the client will express a degree of rage out of the blue, and maybe it's not characteristic. And anger, rage, depression are very tightly connected. It can be a sign of the absolute desperation that they cannot see any way out of it, and they are angry with the world and angry with themselves that they've got to that point, perhaps. Sometimes a person blames themselves for something in their life, and they're angry with themselves that they allowed it to happen or that they did a certain thing, and the sense of it being unforgivable or irretrievable is what drives them towards maybe taking their own life. So rage is something to look out for. Another area is recklessness, when the individual starts to engage in dangerous activities like dangerous driving, or anything like just walking in the street at night without care of traffic when that's not characteristic of them. That can be a warning sign about hopelessness and obviously becoming indifferent to the consequences of serious bodily harm. Often clients who are close to making a decision about suicide report feeling trapped in a situation. That's a very distinctive sign. I'm trapped and I can't get out of this situation. Now it doesn't matter that may not be true in any meaningful way. If they
that's how they see it.
That's how they see it.
Using it.
Absolutely. And other elements are about withdrawing from social networks, being very agitated, sometimes posting online that they are. Obviously, if they post online, they think they've taken their own life, then that's something which you have to take very seriously. But there is evidence that sometimes online, particularly on Facebook, people start a slow process, will and testimony, saying some things that in previous times might have been in our last will and testament. You can roll it out over a few days and start to say, Fred, you've always liked my collection of comic books. Well, you can have them whenever I don't need them, things like that. Other aspects are to do with how, if a person has made a decision to take their own life, then there can be a period of improvement in their mood, because if they're feeling trapped and hopeless and what do I do, that a dreadful decision that they've made to take their own life can lift their mood because they have a sense of doing something. Yeah. Other aspects that a carer maybe is distinctively well placed to notice is sometimes when people are planning to take their own life or countenancing it as a possibility, is they start to stockpile drugs, preparing for an overdose. Drugs are generally less toxic than used to be, so overdoses very often won't kill you but will damage your insides, so there's that to be aware of. But for stockpiling pills, and also simply as mundane as it sounds, buying things that you can use to kill yourself. Knives are domestically available generally, but sometimes people will buy materials to suffocate themselves with, and so on. So clearly any individual one of those things does not necessarily, of course, mean the person is planning to take their own life, but it is possible. But the bottom line is, people who are intending to take their own life very often will say, I'm going to take my own life. I've had
and will be quite open. If
absolutely.
you ask them, are you thinking of
they'll tell you.
They'll tell you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is one of the reasons why, if you have any questions, if you have any suspicions, to ask the person directly, are you thinking about taking your own life? You won't put the idea into their head if it wasn't there originally, and as you say, almost always, they will tell you that yes, that is something I've been thinking about, and I'm planning it, and I'm thinking of doing it after
this
that
event or on this
that
date that
event, yeah.
if they're starting to
They
plan.
often have
Yeah.
a timeline around it. On the practical side for a carer, in terms of what you can do, if they have bought something to kill themselves with, take it off them and say to them, look, whatever you think right now, I don't want you to kill yourself. I really believe you don't want to kill yourself. Let's get these knives and this rope that you bought and these new pillows in your favourite colour that you bought away from you. Do you agree? And they say yes. And that little decision to not do that, to not hold on to the means, is the beginning of getting them to reconnect with a more longer term solution. It's suicide is a long term solution to a short term problem, very, very often.
And as you were saying, kind of 999, the GP, A&E, there'll be a lot of professionals who are used to dealing with it, used to making those assessments, and can bring in crisis teams if necessary to help support the person through that short-term crisis.
Absolutely. And again, I think people are much better trained now, much better resourced than they used to be. One thing which has come to my attention recently, which may not be always the case, and it may not be the case forever, but it is the case right now too often, which is that for any emergency, when you dial 999, you will be asked several questions, and if you say you're with someone who's attempted or has attempted or is attempting or very close to taking their own life, they'll treat it as an emergency and try and send out an ambulance or a paramedic in another form as soon as they can. But it will take time. They will not turn up straight away. Therefore, you need to be ready to sit with the person, maybe for half an hour, maybe more, hopefully less, but it could be as long as that, including weather and traffic conditions and your geographical location, and you have to be with them in that period between you, with or without their consent, phoning 999 and waiting until someone turns up. And that is a very distressing and difficult situation for both of you. But the thing to focus on is the people who are experts who can help you right now are on the way. They will be here within minutes. Let's just sit tight and I'll listen if you want to talk to me about anything. But right now, that is what we're focusing on. They will be here very, very shortly. So that is something that nowadays we just need to be aware of, really. The other thing which carers can be involved in is that safety plan. The safety plan, as I say, will cover signs that maybe you're deteriorating in your mood, if you're the person who's suffering depression, what you can do immediately if your mood is deteriorating, going out into a public place, going somewhere with people that you can talk to, etc., etc., and then moving on to more crucial things like phoning up the GP or phoning up a friend to help you, have someone come round to sit with you if you're on your own at that time, etc., etc.
And actually, I was just going to pick up that the friend one can be very helpful. And in the safety plan, the person may have a set of numbers, and having people who you can ring. And it's something I've done with. I've had a couple of friends who've gone through suicidal patches, and I've been the person that the person they've been with rung and said, "This is happening. Can you get to the house?" And it can help a lot because, as you say, particularly that period of waiting for the emergency services or taking them to A&E can be incredibly stressful for the carer. So having other friends can both support you as the carer as well as them. And it's definitely, 2 or 3 people can help shift the burden, and also if you need to go and get a drink or a cup of tea, or you might be extremely distressed yourself.
Indeed. If you're in that role, there's always a decision about ringing 999 and waiting for an ambulance or paramedics, whatever form, or taking them to A&E. I think on balance, taking the person to A&E can be sometimes the best option because you're doing something all the way. You'll still wait when you get there for a while, depending upon what state you're in. But it does get the person to A&E very quickly, obviously. Now, if your partner has expressed a degree of risk to the GP or the therapist in particular will sit down with the individual and help them complete a safety plan sometimes called a personal care plan, personal protection plan, and it'll have various. This is one that I use. It's several sections with telephone numbers, as you say, and then the very back page is just the advice we've been giving there about contacting GPs, NHS helpline at hours. There are various organisations that can help: Samaritans, Mind, for Men there's CAM, Campaign Against Living Miserably, and other organisations, obviously websites. And in terms of the NHS, their advice is in that moment to try and not think about the future, just focus on getting through today. Stay away from drugs and alcohol is very important. Get yourself to a safe place if you live on your own, like a friend's house, or of course phone the friend, get them to come to you. Be around other people. People who live on their own are more at risk, and one of the things they can do is get themselves to a public place where it just is more difficult to kill yourself. And if you can, do something you usually enjoy, such as spending time with a pet. Now, the person at risk has to own the plan. The therapist will help them, will guide them, say, this is why it's important. You've got to specify your preferences. What are the things that might trigger you? What are the things that might make your situation deteriorate? What are your coping strategies? You decide, but write them down, and she or he will ask the client to sign this, and we'll take a copy of it. And if you know that your loved one is going through that process of discussing risk and developing a safety plan, you can ask if you could see it, and to know what it is. Sometimes people take a copy of it and carry it around with them. You might want to have a backup copy. Individuals forget where they put things when they're distressed, so it's good to have that.
And particularly things like the numbers can be, especially if it can be an extremely upsetting, distressing situation, and at that time just think, actually there's some numbers I can ring, and you ring 2 or 3 people and they come round.
Absolutely. And the organisations in this country are really fantastic, but if you can get your loved one to make the call, not just is it good to we'll speak to someone empathetic and compassionate and trained and alert to all the signals, but you're getting them to do something in that moment. They're doing an activity. They won't have to wait for very long on the line normally. They will get through to someone very, very quickly who's expert, experienced, compassionate, non-judgmental, and will keep them talking, if nothing else, if that's what they want to do for as long as or as short a time as they want. One of the key things about good safety plan management is that it's regularly updated, maybe once a month, depending upon the person's life situation or their thoughts about how things are going, and it would be appropriate for the carer to be involved in any revisions of it. Of course, it does mean that the individual at risk knows that they've got a plan if things start to go wrong. They know what to do, and they know that their partner knows what to do as well. So it's that level of sharing about something that's very important. Quite apart from the substantive benefit of having a plan, the benefit and the reassurance that comes from someone else knows they've got a plan, they're taking it seriously, and they're taking my work within the plan seriously too.
I hope you found this course helpful. At FCC, we're committed to providing courses and training for unpaid carers, and these courses are completely free. If you found this helpful, you could support our work in 3 ways. Please recommend it to any friends or people that you know that will benefit from the courses. Please consider sharing it on social media. And if you can, please consider donating. There are buttons on the website where you can donate £1, £2, £5, and every pound that you donate will make a huge difference by helping us make more and more care courses completely free to carers. Thank you very much.